not nervous, I'm not shy, I'm just going to be like, be for real. I didn't grow up in church. I kind of became part of the church at the age of, I was visiting at the age of 13. Before I was 13 and became part of a church, or visiting a church, I can only remember up to the age of 8, of when things started crumbling in my life. I'm the oldest, well, I'm one of 9 girls that my mom had. I'm the third oldest. I have 2 more above me. And at the age of 9, it was like, the oldest ones went their own way and I kind of stuck around. I grew up with a mom who basically was a drug user. She didn't care about me and my little sisters. My dad, who is in my life now, he isn't my biological dad. He's the dad to my little sisters. I became part of his life at the age of 5. He raised me. Wasn't the perfect dad, but he was a dad in my eyes. He was one of the biggest drug dealers in the city of El Mirage. Growing up, I was part of that scene of, I used to help my dad sell drugs. I can tell you how they're done. I can basically go into detail, but there's little ones around. But when my mom met my dad and had all my little sisters, she basically, of course she was already doing drugs, so she, knowing that my dad was a big drug dealer and had all this money, she would use him for the drugs, steal from him, leave us for days and days to come, and I was the one left behind taking care of my little sisters. At the age of, I would say 11, my dad got raided the 3rd time. And at that time, me and my sisters basically had to live with 3 doors down a neighbor for I would say at least 6 months. They were just friends and friends with the family. And we grew up with all kinds of, men around. The lady who took in me and my sisters, she just took us in to give us shelter. We didn't know what was going on. And, I used to roam the streets like crazy because obviously I had no one to look after me and no one who cared. During the time of the neighbor taking in me and my sisters, one of my dad's sisters kind of stepped up to the plate and found out about what was going on. She came to pick up me and my sisters one weekend. It was like, you guys want to stay over for the weekend? We were like, well, fine. We were being dragged around everywhere, so it was like nothing to us. With all that, with that weekend going with my aunt, it was like the beginning of a new life that I have never seen. Like I said, my mom was a drug dealer. When my parents went to jail, my dad did 5 years for the first time in his life. My mom was always in and out of jail. She was already in the system so many times. With the fact that she was in jail again, my dad, who raised me, was gone for 5 years. I don't know who my biological dad is. I know his name, and I know he lives in California, and that's about it. I don't know what would happen if I were to meet him face to face. I probably would be like a stranger to me. But knowing that my mom and dad were going to be gone for a long time, my aunt was kind of stepping up to the plate, took us in. She had asked me and live with her. And we were like, well, we'd rather be with family than a stranger. So we kind of took that opportunity to try to get used to her, try to get used to family that we weren't really seeing, because of my parents being in the situation they were. They cut us off from all of our family. And it all started, me and my sisters were in foster care for, I would say, 2 years, living with my aunt, because my aunt didn't have legal guardianship. My parents still had their rights, but they were nowhere to be. We were in the system, like I said, for 2 years. If my aunt wouldn't have signed up to adopt us, we would have been put into custody, separated, from one another. And there's 6 of us. And so, that happened where we went through the whole process of being in court. And as we were in the process of going to court now that I changed my last name to Garcia. My birth name is Veronica Flores, which is my mom's name. I decided to change my last name to my dad, who is in my life now, because, he was a father figure that I've always wanted. I only knew him as my dad. So I changed my last name. Me and my sisters were finally adopted by my tia. We were happy to be part of a real family. We finally found out, growing up, like I said, with parents who are drug users, drug dealers, we grew up filthy, disgusting. I would be the one changing my sisters while my mom's out in the streets, my dad's doing his thing. I would be the one to feed them, clothe them, take them to school while I'm still trying to stay in school. And like I said, we're filthy, disgusting. You name it, it was in the house. Detail, rats, roaches, old food, dirty clothes. We were never well taken care of. Because we didn't know how to take care of ourselves. But when my aunt adopted us, we finally knew what we finally knew what breakfast, lunch, and dinner was. We knew what a table was. We knew it was like all brand new to us, because, knowing that my aunt did so good for herself and her family and to open her doors to me and my sisters, she taught us how to become women. She taught us how to, bathe. She taught us how to eat. She taught us how to talk. It was just like all brand new to us. Living with my aunt, she wasn't the easiest person to live with. She still had 3 kids of her own in her own house. We grew up in a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. With her kids living there, it was really hard because, there was barely any space, but it was better than where we were before. We were living in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom with my parents before everything happened. And, growing up with my aunt, it was hard. She was married to a guy named by the name of Richard Duarte, which you know him as B.B. Duarte. His brother was an assistant pastor at a church called Apostolic Faith Center in Peoria. And my tío's mom, Connie Duarte, she would always come around once, we got more into debt with getting to know all the family. My Nana Connie, she would pick up me and my sisters for church, and that's how we started going to church. We didn't know where we were going, what it was all about. It was all new to us, I didn't even know who Jesus was. I didn't know who God was because nobody ever taught me. But starting to go to this church, it was like I would always anticipate to keep going because I loved it. I loved the feeling of being in church, and my sisters did too. And so as we got more and more into that, visiting every Sunday, my Nana picking us up for Bible study sometimes on Wednesday. then we finally, got together with my W.O.W's family, which is a Duartes. There's a bunch of them. And they opened up their arms to me and my sisters, so it's like we kind of got adopted into my Dio's family. So till today, we Dio, Dia, they opened arms to me and my sisters. And as we started going to Apostolic Faith Center, it kind of got to the point where, my uncle and aunt who took me and my sisters in, they didn't care about church. My Dio knew exactly what Apostolic was all about because his dad, they all grew up in church. And as little by little, we would still go. And at the age of 14, I received the Holy Ghost. I didn't know what it was. I honestly didn't know what it was. It was just an awesome feeling. And so I wanted to get more and more involved in it because I wanted to learn more about it. And as 14, 15, 16 came around, I was still raising my little sisters because it was a habit, doing every single little thing for them, getting up before school, combing their hair, feeding them, washing their clothes, doing everything for them because I was used to it. I never focused on myself because that was just something I wasn't used to doing. Growing up the way I did, I had to become a mom at 9 years old to my little sisters because my mom wasn't there, to care for us. But still doing it, I got to do it for my sisters and going to school, and so it came to the point where I wanted more of going to church and learning more about Jesus, and so it came to where 15, 16, I tried to get involved, and at the time, Brother Oscar and Sister Stella were at that church, and they became my youth leaders. And, I would talk to them, and they really knew a lot of my family. And I mentioned to them I want to start getting Bible studies because I wanted to get baptized. And this was like, 14, 15. So, of course, I started getting so into the church that, my aunt didn't like what she saw. She didn't like the fact that I started changing my ways. I started bringing church into a house where it wasn't really necessary. Like, they didn't care. I mean, for me and my sisters to go to church, it was just a way of getting rid of us to give them some time, because they just took in 6 girls. Imagine what a house is with 6 girls and 3 of their own, chaotic. But, I would bring it home, so she kind of held me back. She was like, no, you're not going to go, you're not going to go. So then days and days would go by where we wouldn't go, and then right away we would go. She would let us go whenever she felt like it. So it was really hard for me to really have a serious relationship with God, because it was just like back and forth, back and forth. So then, as I got older, I started going to school, doing my own thing, and I started focusing on myself for once. And, my sisters were getting older. They were very mature in what they were doing. Going to school, they would actually learn. They would actually know how to do for themselves. And that's when I kind of sat back and was like, it's time for some me time, in my life, because I grew up too fast. I grew up, like I said, becoming a mom and then adjusting to a whole big different scenery. And so, at the time, 15, 16, 17, my dad's getting ready to come out of prison. And my mom is still nowhere in sight. We all knew when she would get out of jail or, whatnot, because we knew a lot of people. But she wouldn't bother to come look for us. She wouldn't bother to call. She wouldn't bother to write. Both of my parents had to give up their parents' rights while they were in jail and in prison. And so, nothing from my mom after years and years and years. My dad comes out, he's a whole complete man. He found God in prison. Of course, what jailbird doesn't find God in prison. That's when they need him the most. And it's sad to say, but they have nothing better to do while they're in there but to call out, because they want their family, they want freedom, but they ask to be there. So my dad, he finally found out what Christianity was all about. He finally learned what God was all about. And, I thank God to this day my dad's never touched drugs, a cigarette, nor a beer since he came out of prison in 2007. And, to see that what God has done in my dad's life, it was like, why shouldn't I continue living for God, even though my aunt doesn't want me to get so involved with it, So I started doing my own thing. I started changing my ways. I started, dressing the way I saw was right. I didn't know all about the skirts. I didn't know what modesty was supposed to look like. And so, when all that happened, my dad came out. I graduated high school. I had a good job, and, I was just ready to start my own life. And, through the age of 15 to 18, going to trying to get involved in church as much as I can, and trying to look out for my little sisters and try to focus on me, it was really hard. And that's, like I said, trying to get in church was hard. Between the age of 16 and 18 was when I kind of got introduced to my husband. Me and his sister grew up in Almiraj in 3rd grade, and we lost contact or whatnot. So while I'm going to church, my husband kind of jumps in the picture where he likes me. When you find out someone likes you, kind of act all shy and embarrassed in front of them. So my aunt, of course, thought I was going to church just to see him, but it wasn't even like that. I wanted to learn more about God. I wanted to draw closer. I wanted to get baptized. And at the age of 18, my aunt pulled me completely out of church because of the thought of wanting to just go to church to see Junior, which, that was her mentality. And so, that happened. My aunt had a lot of control over my life. She kind of dictated everything I did, from school, from talking to friends, from going out, from doing anything. It was just clean, come home, and do what you got to do. So it was really strict when we moved in with her. Of course, I wasn't perfect. I got in trouble. I wasn't perfect. And, I was at a point in my life where I wanted to kind of go out and do my own thing, but it was like I just couldn't, because I felt that guiltiness on me. So it was like beer, music, smoking. It wasn't for me. It was not for me. I could be around it like nothing, but it wasn't for me. It was something I never wanted to get into because I seen it all done in front of my eyes, knowing that it was all around me my whole life. I never had that urge to touch it. I thank God that he had that on me. And for my little sisters to look up to me as a mom and a big sister, I didn't want to set that example on them. So, of course, like I said, I had a good job, graduating high school. Me and Junior were so in love at the time. And at the age of 18, I decided to take a step out for myself. It may have been, you can call it whatever you want, disobedience or whatnot, but I left the house. I left my aunt's house because that was something I wanted for myself. I never got to live my own life. I never got to make a decision on my own. So it was like, at 18, I was set, had a good job, driver's license, graduated high school, I was set. So I ended up leaving my aunt's house and moving out with Junior, because at the time, of course, he tells me he's going to give me the world. So it's like, I leave home, and that was like, it was like, for me, it was like a new chapter in my life. It may have been, like I said, disobedience. I don't know what you want to call it, but for me, it was hang out with friends I wasn't supposed to hang out with, but I didn't do nothing dumb. It wasn't me, like I said. And you know, going to Apostolic Faith Center, that was like basically all my family. Of course, Junior's parents were going there. And when we liked each other, his dad used to call me his daughter-in-law at the age of 17. I'm like, no, you know, that needs to stop. And so, sure enough, you know, till today, it's like I am part of a great, I would say, a great path in my life. I mean, I'm not perfect. I go through hell like everybody else. I mean, till today, you know, my little sisters look up to me like, you know, like a mom, because they don't have that mother figure in their life. And that's what I wanted. I wanted them to look up and be like, I want to be like her. You know, I try to set a good example for them. And they, you know, they do tell me that they want to be like me. And it's like, no, you don't. You want to be your own self. You know, just keep going and make the right choices. You know, make good of yourself. And of course, you know, include God in your life no matter what. You know, till today, it's like, it's unbelievable, you know, that I'm standing here telling you my testimony, because it's like, I never thought I would be here to even give you my life story in a little bunch, you know what I'm saying? There's much more to it. You know, leaving with my husband, it was a big decision, but I still decided that I wanted God to be a part of my life. So then, the age of 18, no, I would say, yeah, 19, I'm sorry, in June of 2009, I gave my life to God, and it was like one of the biggest and greatest decisions that I ever did. I still kept going. I still kept my faith that I'm gonna live for God one day. I'm gonna, you know, live a good life. You know, I'm gonna raise my family the way I didn't have. You know, I want my family and my kids to know about God. I want to be a good mother that I didn't have. You know, I want to be a good wife that, you know, I never saw. I never knew what a wife was. I just thought it was when you get married, you're like best friends. And, you know, till today, it's like, he is my best friend, but there still comes your obstacles, your family and whatnot, your job, and being support to your husband, and it's just, it's crazy. But, you know, like I said, giving my life to God and still going at it, you know, I don't even see myself I don't regret anything in my life right now. I just got to keep looking forward and, you know, show my son, even though he's a demon child, you know, he's just for that. I want to show my kids, you know, what growing up in church is all about. I want them to know, you know, because of God, that mommy is here. I just, you know, and I just want to say, you know, for all you sisters who are here, just keep showing your kids the woman figure that God wants you to be in their life. Because I didn't have that. It was just knowing that I don't really have a mom in my life. It's the most horrible feeling, but it's like, I'm like, why am I not angry? Why am I at peace with it? But because, you know, God's in my life, and he's given me all that my mom didn't give me. And it's like, I thank God, because all you sisters who are here are like good role models to me, because I don't have a role model in my life. I wish I did. I wish I had a role model that lives for God.